Hi, and thanks for watching. If you've watched my other videos, you'll know that we've got a little turbo Grom here, making about 15 horsepower, 6-pounder boost. However, we can't put the brakes on super tough because the OEM forks are super soft, and when with my weight and when we hit the brakes pretty hard, we're just beginning to start rubbing on the intercooler piping there. Not a big issue. So I've got some 6.5 Newton millimeter springs. Should be pretty stiff for me. I'm about 85 kilos. And that should stiffen it up, and we shouldn't be diving the bike so much under full brake anymore. Let's get to it. And just like that, the front fell off. Here we are at my dad's property, and the shed is an absolute mess, but it's the only time I'm going to get to have a crack at these fork tubes for a little while. So bear with me while the shed is an absolute mess. We're going to replace these springs today. So we took these out earlier. What we're going to do, that I actually recommend, that I haven't done, is we're going to put under this guy while you still have the tube in the bike before you loosen off the clamps. But you can just gently grip around here. Then next step, once we have that off, we're going to back off. There's a little lug nut in there that holds onto the spring assembly, which pulls it back down into this bottom tube here. So we need to apply some heat to this. I've got a thermal gun that I use for my work just to make sure that we don't get it too hot, but we're going to get it, I'm guessing, up to about 200 degrees C maximum, but ideally less than that. We'll just keep a bit of tension on it to see if the thread loosens so we don't get it hotter than we need to. Also, this is a left-hand thread, so lefty-loosey, righty-tighty does not work. It's lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. So when you back it off, that's how you'll know you're going to get this thing off. So we'll get it off. There's going to be a little end nut in the bottom of the inner tube, and that's going to give us access to pull the spring out. Let's get cracking. I've got the fork tube now. I just, I am at Dad's, so I have some pretty limited tools because he's a farmer and does things a bit more agriculturally. Not being rude to farmers, but that's just my dad maybe. So I've got the tube just very gently gripped in the vise. I've wrapped it in a bit of towel that I've found just to, so I don't crush and bruise the outer tube. Then I've had to use a shifter because I don't have a socket that's that big. And just gently giving this a tap with a hammer, trying to simulate like an impact driver, just to loosen off this end nut. Or we could call it the top nut. So this is a little bit tight. It hasn't been disassembled. There shouldn't be any Loctite on it, I hope. Otherwise, if there is any Loctite on any of these assemblies, we'll clean it up off the thread. Okay, so now what we've got here, we've got this little jam nut that holds this washer, so that's going to let us seat the top of the spring when we put it back in. Don't lose the washer. And we're going to crack that off. And then this end or top nut assembly winds off of this shaft. We can remove that, remove the washer, and then this inner tube, you'll see it's moving. We're going to extend this all the way out, and that's going to present some dampener holes that let the oil balance between the tubes, and that's where we're going to clamp it from so that we can get the bottom tube off. So I'm going to go ahead and crack these off. I'll see you soon. We're back over here at the vise. So the next thing that we're going to do is to gently heat this bottom end here just to crack off that any residual Loctite that might be there from when it was manufactured. You can see we've got the clamp. I've got those 2 pins in there between the jaws of the vise, and that's going to stop this inner tube from rotating while we're there. So I don't have a heat gun. I do recommend a heat gun and not using a flame, but I've got a very gentle burner flame here. So I'll just put it on, show you what we're going to be doing, what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to just dial that back a bit. It's a bit hotter than I want. I'm just going to use the heat off of that flame to try and just gently heat up this bottom tube here. I don't want to get too much of the flame on it. I'm just going to gradually apply that heat, apply some torque through the hole where the axle is until that begins to slide off. I also have a thermal gun, so I'll put that in the video. Actually, I think I can video with it just to show you what temperature this gets up to when it starts to get loose. I don't have a little handheld one, so I only actually have a camera, but I think it's kind of neat. Let's get this off. So I've just been checking, and with the Prodigy bar, this is just beginning to come loose, so I'll put it over onto the thermal camera and I'll just show you how hot this is. Alright, so this is nice and toasty. It's actually a little bit cooler than I was expecting, which is nice. So we're only just over 100 degrees here, which is nice to see. We haven't had to get anything super hot. So we got this thing off now. It's definitely warm to touch here. I haven't got the camera on it, but I'd say it's about 70 degrees. So we probably haven't damaged too much. There's a nice little O-ring here we've got to make sure we put back in when we bring this back together. But I'm going to go through with a wire brush. I'm not going to use anything on a grinder or anything like that. Just remove any of this old Loctite product and clean it up so I don't have to hammer it back on. If you have to hammer it, you got to stop. Clean it up so it slides back on again. I'm also going to let that the bottom tube just cool down a little bit, and I'm going to clean up it at the same time. Then we've got a 14mm hex drive here that is going to be pretty tight, so I've got an impact driver. You know, I'd probably suggest you make sure you have that on hand to get this off. We're going to take that out, and then that's the last bit of the job. It's nearly finished. Then we just got to change the spring over and get the preset right. I'm going to go through, clean this up, and then show you the assembly. So I missed the video, but I've screwed this back on. I think it was about 70 newton meters of torque, so it's specified, but it's a little bit hard for me to get that with the tools I got. So it's got a little bit of the red permanent Loctite thread locker on it. Last step, I got 225mm of fork oil in the Pyrex jar here. I only really want 220, but I figured I'm probably going to lose a few mil in the Pyrex jar as I put it into the fork tube. So we're going to remove the clamp, stand it upright, and then slowly add the oil and let it suck in and out by stroking the suspension now. And there we have it, some slightly stiffer 7Nm springs, and I also upgraded my exhaust while I was at it. What a good girl.